En un mundo que busca reinventarse, nuestra siguiente conferencista imagina edificios que respiran, se adaptan y cuidan de quienes los habitan y los rodean. Arquitecta bioclimática, investigadora incansable y pionera en el uso de materiales inteligentes. Transforma fachadas en organismos vivos al servicio de la ciudad. Su visión redefine el diseño como una herramienta para el bienestar colectivo. Con ustedes, Doris K.
Wow. Thank you. It's exciting to be here. Wow. So 90% of our lives is spent indoors. Many of you have heard this statistic before. Some of you, it might be news. But I'd like to linger on this topic a little for this talk. So if you think about it, if we sleep 8 hours a night, right, and you add it up, that adds up to about 30% of that time. If we work 8 hours a day, and if you're like me, that's 7 days a week, it adds up to another 30%. And so the rest of the time is spent eating, socializing, watching videos, exercising inside gyms, right? And then the other thing that you have to remember is that 5.5% of our time is inside a vehicle, inside cars, right? For me, I'm in Los Angeles, there's a lot of traffic. I think that number is higher for me. Maybe for some of you who are in Mexico City, that might be even double, I don't know. So if you think about it, since we spend so much time indoors, a lot of time, effort, and money is spent to improving indoor spaces, right? We have to purify the air, the temperature is very comfortable, and even lighting is made so that we have high productivity. But maybe it should be the outdoor time that we should be thinking more about. So if you take a wild animal and you put them indoors for 90% of their lives, will they thrive? Are we, like animals, considered an indoor species? If you put us outside for more than that 10%, will we flounder? Will we spontaneously combust? Maybe. I'm an architect, I'm a building tech innovator, and I want to change the way you think about where you spend your time, right? How you spend it, despite how nice your car is, despite how nice that interior is. So there's 2 reasons why we don't go outside more. One is outside the building, in the environment, in urban areas, oftentimes it's inhospitable, right? There's a lot of smog from cars, there's a lot of grime coming from that smog. The temperatures are very high. People are even dying from it. We have noise, glare, safety issues, even humidity issues. Why go outside, right? And then the second reason is that we spend a lot of time making our interior so wonderful, right? It's a kind of a weird paradise feel that we bring what we think ideally is or should be on the outside indoors. We have these green walls, the climate is perfect, everything is made beautiful so that we can then relax and believe that we're healthy. Why should you go outside again? So we also have to think that there's millions of people who don't or aren't part of that 90% statistic. They spend most of their time outside, and a lot of them have no access to interiors. They have no choice of being outside. They have to work outside for many, many hours a day, and if anything, spend 90% of their time outside. They're also getting some of the worst air quality from the cars, from the vehicles, from the things that we make as humans, and therefore are doing very poorly as far as lung disease, heart disease, and many other ailments. And if we go back to what a building is, right, in order to make that healthy interior, this is actually a hospital at Stanford. We have to seal the outside from the inside, right? So the building is so hermetically sealed that you cannot even open a window to make this happen. There's no window on here that's operable. You cannot open it up to get fresh air. So if you think about it, these buildings are made like capsules that as if we're getting ready to live on Mars. But are we? We're just on Earth and we can't even live in this climate. So what I propose is that we should think a little more about those outdoor spaces and those building envelopes and those facades that are made for people on the inside to filter the air and to bring those things to the interior should be actually applied to the exterior of the building. We need to use that millions of square footage across the city as a surface for infrastructure so that we can then improve the lives of people on the outside and spend more time there so that we can use those spaces as living rooms for our society. So how do we do this? I'm going to show you a few technologies by other people first to show you the variety and the range of what we can do on the outside, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about some of my own technology that I developed. So the first thing that we should think about is how we're going to green society and surface and buildings, right? That's easy. You've seen that before. You bring trees, you bring landscaping, you bring vertical walls, try to add more green to our urban areas. But in doing so, too, we need to think about how we're going to provide habitats for animals and other things that help that green going, right? So like bees. So this is an example of a bee habitat. Other things could be creatures, birds, etc. Other types of creatures that we don't think about is bacteria and other live microorganisms. They're important to cities, just like the microbiomes in your stomach, like a probiotic is really important for you to live. You have to have these bacteria. So does a city. We cannot actually live in completely sterile society. So this is actually a wood system of cellulose, you can see here, where it's actually collecting and testing some of those microbiomes of the city. Water is a really important resource to us. We need it to live. But the problem is in cities, we actually have to pipe them in from long distances, and it becomes a problem. So in this technology, it actually collects water, it purifies it, and it actually stores it in a hyper-localized way so that you have water immediately right there and accessible. In places where water security is a problem, this is an excellent solution. Noise pollution is also a big problem for cities. It is so loud. It is not good for us. It's not good for our ecosystem. So this system actually uses perforations on a type of glass and uses those geometries to dampen harsh sounds, to bring that down, and ultimately to bring down the level of headaches that one might get in a city. And finally, this technology actually tries to cool pedestrians down, right? So the pedestrians are people who spend a long time on the street getting a lot of that heat from heat island effect can then be cooled in a very passive way, and so that we can bring down the temperature of the cities by using a lot of these technologies. So, like I said, I'm going to talk about two technologies that I've been working on, and these two technologies are very simple as an idea, but they're important because they deal with public health of the city, and they use the facades. They use the outside of the building to do so. So the first one I'm going to talk about is a smog eating panel, right? All these cities have a lot of smog accumulation from vehicles, and what's happening is that the lung disease in these cities are going higher and higher. So I work with a whole bunch of engineers. I have to say we have big teams of fluid dynamic engineers, civil engineers, medical experts, public policy people, and material engineers to do this. And so we're trying to make these panels that will be very, very affordable and can go anywhere in this world. So what we do is we use the natural airflow inside urban canyon. And what an urban canyon is, it's a street that is flanked by two tall buildings or walls on either side. And what it does is it forms this canyon-like system. And because of the way that the air movement happens inside, the particulate matter and the noxious gases end up staying inside these canyons. It just goes in the circular manner, and the particulate matter, because it's heavy, just builds up more and more and more. So those are the things that all pedestrians, you, if you walk in the city, are starting to breathe. So we're trying to look at a way to clean that up. We changed the geometry of the surface of buildings. You can see one of the tubes in here so that we can actually use that prevailing airflow and send it through these tubes to filter them. And we do that both in wind tunnel exercises above, in simulation models in the computer below. We combine it to maximize the efficacy of it by bunching a whole bunch of these systems together. And we array it on a surface so that it actually maximizes and uses that airflow within the urban canyon. So in this case, the tubes are actually angled at the right place on the facade so that the air would naturally flow into the tubes as a way to maximize, again, that efficacy. And in a different model, we actually pack these tubes tight and close together and use the thermal flow of how heat naturally rises on the surface of building to do that too. So there's a different variety of ways that we're actually testing and implementing it. Not only do we want to put this on a architectural facade so that we, again, like I said, use the facades to manage and to clean the air, but we now also want to put it onto these new types of bus shelters so that these little fresh pockets of air are available to the people who spend the most amount of time on the street in the worst position, right next to the vehicles and right next to all the exhaust. The second technology I'm going to show is about mental health. It actually is trying to tackle issues of mental health. And what it is it uses this thermal bimetal material, I'm going to show you in a bit, that is a lamination of two metals together. And when the temperature goes up, the metal actually automatically curves. And so in this case, between two pieces of glass, we put the system so that they can be protected. And when the sun hits the surface, they flip over and shade the interior. It started with these little critters that we would make in my studio, and we did this for fun. We never thought it would amount to anything. But when we made them, it turns out that a lot of people thought they were cute, that they had kind of a personality of their own. They were awkward, and they were quirky, and so much that we almost treat them like pets in our office, and we even named them. So this one's called Roly Poly. I didn't know how this would actually affect architecture until I realized that the same technology or the same material can be put on a building facade, and that it would react to the sunlight hitting it and the heat from it. And so then throughout the course of a day, throughout the course of a year, and even if climate change is happening and things warm up, it'll actually also change relative to that. So I then put these things inside that glazing, like I said before. They're like little butterflies that flutter and they flip like little animals. They do it at different rates. They have little quirky personalities each, but then also have a function to it. And so when the sun comes out, you can see they flip over, they block the sun from entering, and when the sun goes away, they go back. It's awe-inspiring, it's biophilic, and it's magical. The other thing that actually makes me happy about this technology, what happens on the outside, is it's very bird safe, right? Birds can see it, they don't fly into the building to kill themselves, and therefore have that extra outside component. Very happy about that. If everyone needs windows, please let me know. So how do we get these on buildings? How do we get this technology onto buildings so that people can use them? It's very, very difficult because any real estate owner, right, any developer is not going to want to spend more money to benefit people on the outside. Why do that? I have actually 3 suggestions. The first one is actually to change policy, make the requirement for buildings a little different. Maybe it can actually require a percentage of construction costs, oftentimes like we use for the arts budget, that we can allocate to public-centric technologies that should go on the outside of buildings. Maybe we actually change the location of the property line. Maybe the property line is where the edge of the building goes, but the facade is something that goes into the easement, and that government, organizations, other businesses can operate in that area. The second thing is to think entrepreneurially, right? If entrepreneurs can actually see this as a profit-making opportunity, that facades can actually be leased out to other businesses, farming, smog eating, any kinds of water making, then maybe it could actually be a business proposition. I know it's a little difficult. These things are radical, but it's the only way we can think transformatively. And finally, we have to advocate for change. And this is for everyone. This is for building occupants. this is for pedestrians, and this is for residents of a city. We need to demand that our buildings and our facades are more magnanimous, right? That they can help us all with public health and that they can be infrastructure for our city. So next time you're in a city, you're walking around, you're looking at the buildings, think a little differently. They can do much more than enrich the people on the inside of the building. They can benefit everybody on the outside. Thank you.